You think you are married to one woman. But what if you've actually been with three without even realizing it? 3 sisters, 3 identities. This is not just a story of betrayal. It's a real psychological maze. Listen carefully to how I uncovered the truth. I always believed that marrying Jessica would lead to a simple and happy life. Things between us felt easy, like a slow-moving river, with only the occasional bump in the road and a routine that became second nature. Still, there was always this nagging feeling in the back of my head, something I couldn't quite pin down. I usually brushed it off, thinking it was just me stressing over nothing. But as time went on, little shifts in Jessica's behavior started to catch my eye. At first, they were so slight that they didn't really register, but after a while, they added up, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. Looking back, the signs had been there all along, but I didn't connect the dots until things started getting strange, right around the time we were nearing our 3rd wedding anniversary. The first big red flag was when Jessica suddenly decided to change her hair. She'd never gone short before, and I'd always loved her long hair. But after a holiday shopping spree with her sisters, she came back with a short, trendy haircut that took me completely by surprise. It looked amazing, so much so that I didn't even know what to say at first. My reaction seemed to throw her off. "Okay, who are you, and where'd you hide my wife?" I joked, hoping she'd laugh it off. Instead, she looked uneasy, like she'd done something wrong, and might run for the door. She quickly explained that her sisters, Karen and Lisa, had convinced her to go for it, and she hoped I wouldn't be upset. Even though I was caught off guard, I told her, "You look stunning, babe. I love it." But she still seemed unsure. "Are you really not mad?" she asked, almost nervously. "Of course not, you look fantastic," I said again, trying to reassure her. She smiled, but it wasn't her usual confident grin. It felt forced, uneasy. I figured she was just nervous about making such a big change. Later that night, though, things got even stranger. Turns out, the haircut wasn't the only change she'd made. Curious, I asked, "Did you shave?" "No, I had electrolysis." "It's permanent," she replied casually, almost too casually. "Permanent? Isn't that a bit much? What if you change your mind?" I said, genuinely surprised. "I won't. I feel better like this. Don't you think it looks good?" "Well, it's your body, and yeah, you definitely look sexy," I told her, still processing everything. "I just thought you might want to try shaving first, before going all in." "Don't you like it?" she asked again, looking for reassurance. "I do. I'm just surprised, that's all," I said with a chuckle. That night, things really heated up in the bedroom, and even spilled into the living room later. It was like her new look gave her a confidence boost I hadn't seen in a long time. The days that followed felt a little off, though. Jessica started acting differently, almost like she wasn't the same person. I began to wonder if the haircut meant more to her than I had first thought. By the time Monday rolled around, things seemed to calm down, and I kept throwing out compliments about her new style. By the end of the week, she finally seemed convinced that I truly liked it. The following weekend, her sisters came over for a barbecue, and that's when things took another weird turn. Karen and Lisa showed up with the exact same haircut Jessica had gotten the week before. Their hair had always been as long as Jessica's, and now the 3 of them looked almost identical. Without their different outfits, you could barely tell them apart. Over time, I got better at telling them apart again, but the whole thing still felt unsettling. Sure, they had their own personalities, but their matching hairstyles had been one way to easily distinguish them, and now I didn't have that. There were still a few little differences, though. Karen and Jessica were more laid back, while Lisa was the wild one, always dragging them into impulsive decisions. Lisa had a carefree attitude, always the first to buy something bold and convince her sisters to do the same. Karen was the more serious one, having earned her MBA, while Jessica and Lisa had stopped at bachelor's degrees. Karen had already been married for 3 years by the time I met Jessica, while Lisa, still single, made it clear she wasn't interested in marriage anytime soon. She valued her freedom and had no plans to change that. The three sisters had always been incredibly close, especially when their parents hit rough patches. They stuck together through thick and thin, supporting one another no matter what. Growing up, they often dressed alike, which led to some pretty funny moments, like when they all got punished together because their parents couldn't tell them apart. Shopping for the same outfits was always tricky since stores didn't usually carry 3 identical sets. At one barbecue over at Karen's place, her husband, Tom, was nowhere to be seen, and I could tell something was off. The sisters seemed tense, but no one was saying anything outright. I guessed Karen and Tom were going through a rough patch. Tom and I had never really clicked, he was always a bit distant, and I never figured out why. Karen was pretty private about her marriage, just like Jessica and Lisa kept their personal lives close to the chest. While we were eating, Jessica went inside to grab something, and Karen followed her. They were gone for almost half an hour, obviously having some sort of private chat. Meanwhile, Lisa started flirting with me, which wasn't anything new, she'd done it even back when I was just dating Jessica. She had this habit of getting a little too touchy sometimes. I played along at first, keeping it light, but made sure not to let things get out of hand. When Karen came back, she sat at the far end of the table, throwing me some strange looks. I figured she wasn't too happy with how Lisa was acting, so I made sure to tone it down quickly. Later that night, Jessica seemed a bit distant, probably still thinking about whatever was going on with Karen and Tom. When we went to bed, she held on to me tightly, like she needed something steady in her life. It was clear that her sister's situation was weighing heavily on her. The following week went by without much happening, and by the time Saturday rolled around, everything felt back to normal. Jessica was looking forward to going Christmas shopping with her sisters, and it didn't surprise me when Lisa pulled up to take her out for the day. I spent the time getting some work done around the house, using the warm weather to catch up on outdoor projects I'd been putting off. Everything felt pretty calm for the time being. I decided to head to the mall to finish my own Christmas shopping and spotted Lisa's car in the parking lot. Not wanting to accidentally run into Jessica or her sisters, I made a quick exit. Those three could spoil a surprise faster than anyone I knew. I caught a glimpse of them near the food court, clearly enjoying their day of shopping, so I slipped out and decided to hit up a different shopping center on the other side of town. Feeling pretty smart for avoiding them, I wrapped up my shopping and headed home, gifts in hand. When I got home, Jessica, Karen, and Lisa were sitting around the kitchen, chatting over coffee. "Oh, someone's been sneaky," Jessica teased, eyeing the bags I was holding. "What did you get us?" "It's a secret. You'll just have to wait until Christmas to find out," I replied, moving the bags out of their reach. "Come on, Nick," Jessica grinned. "Isn't at least one of those for Karen or Lisa?" "Nope," I said, smiling. "I know better. If I tell you, somehow you'll communicate through some weird sister telepathy, and there goes the surprise." "Telepathy, huh?" Jessica laughed. "Yep," I said. "You three are too good at that. If I spill the beans, they'll know, and then I'll be the worst gift giver yet again. Not happening this time." "You're no fun, Nick," Karen joked. For the first time in weeks, she seemed more relaxed, maybe even happy. I silently hoped that things between her and Tom were getting better. Jessica also seemed more like her usual self, although still quieter than normal. And, of course, Lisa couldn't resist throwing in a bit of her usual flirting. "Nick, I really love what you've done with the front porch." "It looks amazing," Lisa said, a little too eagerly. Thanks," I mumbled, glancing over at Jessica to gauge her reaction. "Just took some tools and a bit of time." "Speaking of tools," Lisa added with a wink, leaning in slightly, "maybe you could swing by tomorrow and help me out. I've got a few things around my place that need fixing, and I hear you've got the right kind of equipment." I felt my face heat up. Lisa was definitely pushing the limits. Sorry, Lisa, but I think Jessica's got me on a permanent contract. Lisa's eyes twinkled mischievously. Jessica, can I borrow Nick for a few hours tomorrow? I promise I'll give him back in one piece. Jessica smirked, but her reply threw me off. Sure, Lisa, take him for 4 hours, and then Karen can have him for another 4. By the time he gets home, he'll be too wiped out to bother me. I chuckled along, but her tone stuck with me. Was she actually serious? I never thought I was pestering her for intimacy. Up until now, I'd assumed we were on the same page about how often we were together. That night, as we settled into bed, I couldn't shake the feeling. Finally, I asked, so, do you really think I'm bugging you for sex too much? Jessica looked over at me, surprised. What? Why would you think that? Because of what you said earlier, about lending me out. It made me wonder if I'm coming on too strong. She sighed, brushing it off. I was just joking, Nick. You're reading too much into it. You've never made that kind of joke before, I said, feeling uneasy. I thought you liked how often we're together. If it's too much, just let me know. I don't want you to feel like it's a chore. Jessica softened, her tone becoming more sincere. Nick, I love being with you. If anything, I wish we could be together more, but life gets in the way sometimes. Honestly, I was just teasing earlier. Really? I pressed. Because sometimes jokes can reflect what people really think. She shook her head, a trace of frustration in her voice. No, seriously, our sex life is fine. I promise. What's really bothering you? I hesitated, then admitted, I feel like something's going on with Karen and Tom, and I don't like being left in the dark if it's affecting us. Jessica sighed, looking torn. Nick, it's just girl talk. Karen and Tom are going through a rough time, but they'll figure it out. Karen's always been private. If it were me or Lisa, you'd know everything. She just doesn't want you and Tom getting into it. Her words left me confused. Tom and I weren't close, but we'd never had any sort of argument. Why would Karen be worried about that? Still, I let it go for now, even though it kept nagging at me. Another week went by, and things seemed back to normal, or so I thought. It wasn't until something seemingly small happened that I realized something wasn't right. One Thursday night, Jessica cut her finger while helping me prepare dinner. It wasn't a bad cut, just a little nick, and we patched it up with a bandage. By the next morning, it had already started healing, and she slapped another bandage on it before heading off to work. It didn't seem like a big deal. That Friday night, her sisters came over for a casual game night. We were all laughing and joking, but then I noticed something strange. All 3 of them, Jessica, Karen, and Lisa, had bandages on the same finger, in the exact same spot. I made a playful comment about it being a sister thing, but their reactions were odd. They exchanged quick, uneasy glances, and I instantly regretted bringing it up. They stepped away for some private conversations, and I assumed it was just about Karen's situation with Tom, so I didn't think much of it at first. But later that night, while Jessica was getting ready for bed, I noticed her bandage was gone, and her finger, the one that had been cut, looked completely fine, no sign of a scab or anything. When she saw me staring, she quickly reapplied the bandage, avoiding eye contact. I kept telling myself that I must have mixed up which finger had been cut, but then the next day, things got even stranger. Jessica took off the bandage while in the shower, and this time, the cut was back, but in a slightly different spot. A wound that seemed to have healed now looked fresh again. I didn't say a word, but the feeling that something was seriously off kept growing. I knew I had to start paying closer attention. Over the next week, I decided to try the same trick Jessica's parents had used when the sisters were younger, a way they'd figured out who was who when they dressed alike. I quietly marked Jessica with a tiny dot of permanent marker between her shoulder blades, just under where her bra strap would cover it. What I uncovered changed everything. I finally found a spot on the bedpost that worked for keeping track. It took a few tries, but once I got it right, I noticed the mark stayed through Jessica's showers, visible for a few days. But by Saturday, the mark had disappeared again, and Jessica started acting strangely once more. This wasn't the first time I'd noticed something weird, but now there was no sign of the marker on her skin. I decided to try again, this time using a green marker in the same spot. The mark stayed visible all week, but by Friday night, it had vanished again. That's when it hit me, the woman in bed with me wasn't the same one from earlier in the week. It became a pattern. I switched to red ink, and the marks would show up and then disappear after a few days, sometimes lasting 4 days, other times as long as 9. That's when the truth dawned on me, the sisters were rotating, and I had unknowingly been with all 3. I was in complete disbelief, trying to figure out if this was some kind of twisted game they were playing. I never could have imagined finding myself in a situation like this, and I had no idea how to handle it. Meanwhile, Karen and Tom's divorce was moving forward, but Jessica avoided talking about it. I felt torn. Part of me knew I had to confront her, but I couldn't even be sure which sister I was dealing with at any given time. My marriage felt like it was slipping through my fingers, and I didn't know how to stop it. Unsure of what to do, I let things play out until New Year's, when I finally reached my breaking point. One Thursday night, while we were getting ready for bed, Jessica must have sensed that something was wrong. I was still in my pajamas, which was odd since I usually slept without anything. "What's going on, Nick? Why aren't you undressed?" she asked, concern creeping into her voice. I looked at her for a long moment before responding, "I was just wondering who I'm with tonight." She froze, her face twisting in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "I mean," I said quietly, "I'd really like to know who's in this bed with me tonight, Jessica, Karen, or Lisa." Her face went pale, and she tried to laugh it off. "You're not getting anything tonight if you keep talking like this. I don't know where you're getting these crazy ideas about me sharing you with my sisters, but—" "Jessica, stop," I cut her off. "Turn around." "What?" she asked, clearly unsettled now. "Turn around," I repeated, slowly and firmly. She did as I asked, and that's when I saw the small black dots on her back. "Interesting," I said calmly but with an edge in my voice. "Last week, you had red marks. Now they're black. And I'm willing to bet by tomorrow or Saturday, they'll be green." Her face showed a mix of shock and realization. Then she blurted out, "You've been talking to Tom, haven't you?" "No," I replied coolly. "I figured this out on my own. And I don't like what I've discovered. This might be the end of us if there was ever an us in the first place." She stared at me, speechless, but I wasn't finished. "It all started with the haircuts. You used your credit card to pay for a haircut the day after Thanksgiving, but when I checked the dates, I realized you actually got yours on Tuesday. Karen had hers done the same day, and Lisa's was on Thursday." I watched as the realization hit her. Seeing her reaction gave me the push to continue. "You all go to the same salon, so I went and talked to the hairdresser. She confirmed that Jessica's card was used on Thursday, but now I know it wasn't you I spent that week with." She tried to come up with an excuse. "I paid for Lisa's haircut, that's all." "Maybe," I said, not buying it. "But then there was the cut on your finger. I put the bandage on for you, but the next day, all 3 of you had bandages in the exact same spot. And the woman who got into bed with me didn't even have a cut under her bandage." Then, the cut shifted. "That's impossible," she muttered, clearly rattled. "And the marks," I continued. "After seeing all those inconsistencies, I started marking who I was with, black, green, red. Each week, a different color. Right now, you're black. Last week, it was red. Green's going to make an appearance next week." Finally, she stopped trying to deny it. "Nick, I love you. I can't explain this alone. We need to sit down and talk about it, together, all of us. I shook my head. I wish I could believe that, but right now, I don't even know who you are. I'm Jessica, she insisted, though her voice was shaky. Really? I said sarcastically. That makes me feel so much better. How are you going to prove that? She faltered. I can prove it. I'm the one who married you over 3 years ago. I was the one who, her voice trailed off, and I saw the defeat in her eyes. She couldn't prove it. None of them could, and the weight of that realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The woman I thought I married might not even be standing in front of me. Feeling the weight of it all, I asked, so, was Lisa ever planning to settle down? Jessica sighed. No, but it's not what you think. She didn't sleep with all those guys. I shook my head, feeling utterly betrayed. I need to understand that the woman I married isn't who I thought she was. I don't even know how to tell you apart from your sisters anymore. You've all lied to me, cheated me, and stolen the life I thought I had. Jessica's voice broke as she tried to explain. It's not like that, Nick. You weren't deprived of anything. Yes, I was, I said firmly. I was robbed of the love of the woman I believed I married. How long has this been going on? Jessica hesitated, then finally answered, since high school. I stood there, in shock. What do you mean by that? I asked, barely able to get the words out. She pleaded, Nick, we all love you. We've all loved you from the start. Tom knew about this long before you came into the picture, but things got complicated when we didn't tell you. Tom knew. I repeated, stunned. Yes, the whole time, she replied. I was speechless, trying to wrap my head around what she was saying. We need to talk with my sisters, she added urgently. We need to figure this out together. I stared at her, anger rising inside me. I think it's too late for that. I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore. I'm Jessica, she insisted, desperation seeping into her voice. You haven't lost me. Please don't say that. My frustration only deepened. This isn't how things were supposed to be. Damn it, Tom started this whole mess. It's all his fault, she muttered, pacing the room. I felt like my world was collapsing around me. I deserve the truth, Jessica, I said, my voice tight with anger. I figured this out on my own. Tom had nothing to do with it. You figured it out? She asked, surprised. Yes, I replied, recounting everything, the haircuts, the cut finger, the marks, all of it confirming my worst fears. Later, as the 3 sisters sat across from me at the kitchen table, I felt completely overwhelmed. I had been with each one of them without even knowing it. They sat there silently, waiting for me to say something. Finally, I broke the silence. How long has this been going on? Why did you do it? They all started talking at once, their voices blending into a chaotic mess, until the sister in the middle raised her hand, silencing the others. She looked directly at me and said, Nick, we never meant to hurt you. This is just how we've lived for as long as we can remember. Your whole lives? I asked, completely floored. Yes, she confirmed. Since we were kids. We did everything together, got into trouble, shared everything, even love. I was stunned. But you're triplets. Of course you experience things at the same time. It's more than that, she explained. We realized early on that we could switch roles to handle life better. I stared at her, struggling to understand. What do you mean by that? Melissa would become Lisa for a while, and Karen would take on Jessica's life. We'd swap roles for days, sometimes even weeks. So, you're telling me you've been swapping lives for years? I asked, my disbelief growing. All 3 nodded, as I tried to make sense of what they were saying. So, you've been pretending to be each other this whole time. Why stop now? Yes, Nick, one of them admitted. We've all been with you, each week, it's been one of us. I shook my head, the reality of it all making me feel lightheaded. Is that why Tom started having problems? Because he found out? They exchanged uneasy glances before one of them spoke softly. Yes. He knew we loved you before you ever came into the picture. At first, he accepted it, but once you and Jessica got serious, he felt betrayed. He thought it was funny how clueless you were, another sister added bitterly. So, Tom knew from the beginning? I asked, still trying to grasp the full picture. Yes. Before you even started dating Jessica, we had already met you. Switching was just second nature to us, she replied. Then why did Tom get so upset? I asked, confused. Because we all fell in love with you, Nick, the sister in the middle confessed, her voice trembling. I was spinning. I don't get it. I love Jessica. What does this have to do with all of you? Take Jessica's hand, one of them said softly. Show us that you love her. I hesitated, unsure of who was actually Jessica anymore. My hand hovered in the air, but I couldn't bring myself to reach out. Do you see? She whispered. You don't even know which one of us is Jessica. They were right. I had no idea who my wife truly was. So, why does Tom care? What's his stake in all of this? Because he found out that we all loved you, one of them admitted. That's what tore everything apart. I was trying to wrap my head around it all, but it was too much. Oh God, one of them muttered. He still doesn't get it. We should have seen this coming, another added. And then, in eerie unison, all three sisters said, Nick, we love you. Hearing those words come out of their mouths together sent a chill down my spine. It finally hit me, all three of them were in love with me. Oh no, I muttered, feeling the full weight of the situation crash down on me. Why? How did this even happen? I was angry, confused, devastated all at once. My mind flashed back to Lisa, how she'd been with other men while all this was happening. How long had I unknowingly shared my wife, or their boyfriends? They all looked guilty, and my question sparked an argument. You weren't listening to me, one of the sisters snapped. Lisa had to keep dating to maintain the act. Another fired back, you two forced this on me. I never wanted to be part of it. You liked it too, the third retorted angrily. We all agreed that Lisa had to keep up appearances. One of them shot back, you were supposed to keep Tom in line, but letting him know we loved Nick is what ruined everything. You're just as guilty, the other sister spat. You spent every third week pretending to be Jessica. He's my husband, one of them shouted, her voice trembling. I love him. No, the other said coldly. He's our husband. We've shared him all this time, and we've been careful. Lisa hardly dated anyone seriously once we realized we all had feelings for Nick. I met him first, the middle one yelled, her voice shaking with emotion. He asked me out first, and I loved him before either of you. No, I loved him first, another shot back, her voice rising in anger. I'd had enough. Stop it. I yelled, silencing them. You're all fighting over one guy when you've been in this together from the very beginning. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. One of the sisters whispered, but Nick, we really do love you. I clenched my fists, feeling the anger rising inside me again. I love Jessica, I said, my voice firm. She's my wife. But which one of you is she? Every time I tried to confront them, I hit a wall. They all knew it, and so did I. I had no way of knowing who Jessica truly was anymore. Frustrated, I asked, how many other men have you shared like this? 5? 10? 15? How long had this been going on? Divorce seemed like the only way out. I imagined a life with someone who didn't have sisters involved in this twisted game. Maybe that would fix everything. My thoughts must have been written all over my face because they all looked shocked, like my words had hit them at once. "Nick, you don't mean that," one of them whispered, her voice shaky. The voice came from the sister on my left. For some reason, her words gave me a flicker of hope for my marriage. The other two stayed quiet, but the one on my left, Jessica, maybe, spoke again, her tone steady. "Nick, it's me. I'm Jessica." I turned to the sister on my left, but before I could say anything, all three of them spoke at once. "Yes, we're Jessica." Frustration boiled over inside me. Damn it, I love Jessica. I care about Karen and Lisa, but I only love Jessica. "Nick," one of them said softly, "if we don't tell you, you'll never be able to tell us apart. We've been doing this for years, and you never noticed. It wasn't a problem before, so why is it now? Why can't you just accept it and let things stay the same?" I shook my head, the anger bubbling up again. "We've got bigger problems than you think. For example, while my legal wife, Jessica, was pretending to be Lisa, she was sleeping with other men, and she did it knowingly." "I wouldn't say knowingly," one of them muttered defensively. "It was to protect us." "Protect you?" I repeated, my disbelief rising. "How does lying to me and keeping me in the dark count as protection? How can you stand there and say that?" "It doesn't matter," she insisted, her voice turning defensive. "It was to protect our arrangement. We had to keep up appearances. Sure, it wasn't ideal, but there wasn't another option. And Lisa wasn't as involved with other men as it seemed. If she stopped dating or if Karen left Tom, you would have figured out something was wrong right away." I stared at them, trying to control the storm of emotions inside me. Deep down, I was almost certain the one in the middle was Karen. Jessica, I believed, was on my left, and Lisa on my right. I couldn't prove it, but something in my gut told me I was right. "Do you realize how insane this sounds?" I asked, my voice rising. "You've spent your lives switching identities. How do you even know who you are anymore? You claim to love me, but you've lied, cheated, and played this twisted game behind my back. Was it all just a joke?" One of them looked at me with confidence. "We always know who we are. We've been doing this for so long that it's like second nature. We can keep it straight in our minds. We're not crazy." I shook my head in disbelief. "Don't expect me to buy that. Everything I've learned today is completely insane. So what's next? Do I start dating other women? Would that feel normal to you? Technically, I wouldn't even be cheating. I've already got 2 mistresses." An awkward silence settled over the room. My words clearly struck a nerve, and none of them knew how to respond. They exchanged nervous glances, clearly trying to figure out their next move. Finally, one of them spoke up. "Nick, it's simple. You're married to Jessica, but Karen and Lisa run their online businesses. We could all move to a different city, buy a house in a quiet area, and one of us would go into town for errands while the others stay back to run things. You wouldn't need anything else. We'd take care of you. You'd have more love than you'd know what to do with." Frustration boiled up inside me. "And my job? You really expect me to leave everything behind?" "Yes," she said, not missing a beat. "You'd love it. We'd all be together, living happily ever after. We can make it work." I could barely contain my disbelief. I like my job. I like where I live. And now you're talking about living and loving together? This isn't some kind of fairy tale. "Well, we could come up with something else," Lisa added, "but it'd be harder. Karen and I have a growing business. Soon, it'll be big enough for all of us to retire." I stared at them, trying to make sense of what they were saying. Looking at each one of them, it hit me, something I had been ignoring for too long. I couldn't tell them apart without putting some kind of label on them in my mind. This wasn't going to work for me. I needed to know, once and for all, who Jessica really was. "Jessica," I said quietly, "how do you feel about all of this?" The room went dead silent. None of them looked at me, avoiding eye contact. I could tell they weren't ready to let go of the life they'd created. I needed to know what the real Jessica thought before I could figure out where I stood. Suddenly, I felt a foot brush against my leg under the table. At first, it was a gentle touch, slowly rubbing up and down my shin. I tensed up, feeling the weight behind the gesture, like it was urging me to decide. Then, the sister on my right started rubbing my other leg, mirroring the same motions. Finally, the one in the middle slid her foot between my legs. "I need space," I said sharply, standing up from the table. "You're asking me to throw away everything I've ever known, everything I was raised to believe. What you're suggesting is illegal in every state. I need time to think before I make any decisions." They stared at me, wide-eyed, as I continued. "I'm going to stay at a motel for a few days. You all need to stay here. Especially you, Lisa." They didn't argue, but the fear on their faces was unmistakable. I packed enough for a few nights and headed for the door. As I was leaving, all three of them stood there, watching me anxiously. "Please stay," one of them whispered softly. "You can take the master bedroom. We'll sleep in the other rooms. Please don't leave like this." "I need to be away from all of you for a while," I said firmly. "I'll come back with my decision, but you need to stay out of trouble. If I find out any of you have been with another man, that's it." One of them opened the door while the other two kissed me on the cheeks. The one at the door hugged me tightly, whispering, "Nick, I love you. If you want, we can leave, just the two of us, anywhere. I can't lose you." I shook my head, torn between anger and sadness. "You should have thought about that back when we were dating or when we first got married, Jessica, or whoever you really are." She glanced toward the living room through the open door, and I couldn't tell who she was looking at, but it was enough to confirm what I already feared: she wasn't my wife. "You see, I can't trust any of you right now. Not a single one. You've all made a mess bigger than I can handle. I didn't sign up for this. I married one woman, not three." My raised voice must have startled them because the other two came rushing to the door. All three of them were crying, pleading with me not to go. But as I got into the car, I felt this tightness in my chest, like something was crushing me from the inside. I drove off, not sure what my next move would be. A few nights later, I ran into Tom at a bar. He was about to leave when I walked over to him. "If you walk out, I'll follow you," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I'll chase you to hell if I have to," dragging a bucket of water behind me. "We're going to talk, and you're going to give me answers." Tom sighed heavily, looking worn out. "Just, let it go, man. You win. I'm leaving, and I won't say another word about them ever again." "You knew," I growled, feeling my anger spike. "You knew the whole time and never told me." "You don't understand," Tom said, taking a deep breath. "When I first met Karen, I was the only guy in her life. When I found out what they were doing, I was furious. But eventually, I realized it worked in my favor." "Worked in your favor?" I snapped. "You're married to one of them, and they've been playing both of us. This is beyond messed up. What, are we livestock to them? One man for the whole herd?" Tom shook his head. "It wasn't like that. They started it, not me. When I found out, they convinced me I was lucky. And then you showed up. And what does that have to do with me?" I asked, not hiding my frustration. Tom took another deep breath before speaking quietly. "Karen fell in love with you. So did Lisa. And Jessica, well, she's been head over heels for you since the first date. I started noticing something was off when things between Karen and me cooled down. Before I knew it, I was down to the usual married guy routine, once a week, if I was lucky. But you were getting it every night. Several times a night, from what I overheard. Wait, are you telling me, I said, my voice dripping with disbelief, that you knew all along, not just about them and you, but about me too, and you went along with it? Tom shrugged. Look, they're beautiful women. In case you didn't notice, they're identical triplets. If I had told you, you wouldn't have believed me. And who knows what they would have done to keep me quiet? How could I have known? I said, my frustration boiling over. I thought I was married to one woman, not all three. I actually believed they loved me. Tom's tone softened. Then you came along. I don't think I ever truly understood them, but you've won them over completely. 3 wives, 3 lovers, and now you're ready to walk away from all of them. His voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw the pain in his eyes. He couldn't even finish what he was saying. It hit me then, they had pushed him aside for me. They loved me more than him, or at least, that's how it felt to him. I was torn, not knowing what to say. For the first time, I understood why Tom had been so bitter toward me. In his eyes, I had taken whatever connection he had left with Karen, Lisa, and Jessica. I'm sorry, Tom, I finally said, my voice barely audible. I didn't know. I had no idea. Tom looked at me, his eyes tired and full of sorrow. If you had known earlier, he asked, would you have left them? I hesitated. Probably not. They would have convinced me to stay, and I would have ended up seeing things their way. Mark nodded, his face somber. I realize now that what they felt for me was more like lust. But what they feel for you, that's real love. I can see it, Nick. They feel it. Why can't you? I didn't have an answer. As painful as it was, what he said made sense. Mark sighed, then stood up. I'm leaving, he said quietly. Unless you still feel like knocking me out. I just watched him disappear into the night. What could I even say? As twisted as it was, his logic was undeniable. I went back into the bar and drank more than I had in years. By the time I stumbled back to my motel, I could barely walk straight. I tried to piece everything together, to make sense of it all, but my mind was clouded. Nothing felt clear, and drunken thoughts never seem as rational as they do at the time. The next morning, I woke up with a brutal hangover and even more confusion about the situation I was trapped in. The following 5 days passed in a blur. I avoided everyone, went to work, came back to the motel, and spent my nights drinking and talking to bartenders, hoping sleep would come easier. It didn't. After days of wrestling with my thoughts, I made the call. It was time to confront everything head-on. Hey, it's Nick, I said when one of them answered. We need to talk. I've been thinking about everything this past week, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I hope you 3 have been thinking too. Oh, Nick, please, one of the sisters, probably Jessica, responded, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, we've been waiting for you. We'll be here. I'll make dinner, or we'll all cook together. We really need to talk. We love you, Nick. I love you. Her words tumbled out, jumbled and desperate. It was clear this conversation wasn't going to be easy. That's exactly what we need to discuss, this whole love situation, I replied. I'm not happy about what you 3 did, but I also know I love one of you more than anything. I'm stuck in a mess I didn't create. I don't know if we can fix this, but we need to talk. We'll have dinner ready. How about 6 o'clock tomorrow night, she asked, her voice trembling with hope. 6 is fine. I'll be there, I said, hanging up quickly before the emotions could overwhelm me. Just hearing the desperation in her voice left me feeling raw. I had no clue who I had just spoken to, and it was clear she was just as torn up as I was. This was going to be one of the hardest things I'd ever done. The next evening, I pulled up to what used to be my home, trying to gather enough courage to face the situation. Everything felt surreal. Inside that house were 3 women who all looked like the one I loved, but everything had changed. As soon as I knocked, the door opened almost instantly. "Nick, we're so glad you came," they said in unison. All 3 of them stood there, looking identical, perfectly put together, not overly seductive, but undeniably beautiful. It was obvious they had planned this carefully. But seeing them standing together, dressed the same, only made me feel like I was walking into a trap. "I don't stand a chance here, do I?" I muttered under my breath. They looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" Jessica asked. "Yeah, Nick, what do you mean?" Karen chimed in, her eyes wide. "We're giving you every chance, and we hope you'll give us the same," Lisa added gently. "We love you, Nick. Please let us prove it." I sighed, shaking my head. "You're all dressed exactly the same. I can't tell any of you apart, and you know it." "We wanted everything to be equal," Jessica explained. "Whatever happens tonight, we wanted it to be fair for you. We thought if we all looked the same, it might make things easier." "Or," I countered, "are you just hiding behind the fact that I have no idea who's who?" Frustrated, I turned to leave, feeling like I'd walked right into a situation where I couldn't win. Suddenly, one of them grabbed my arm and pulled me back inside. I heard the door slam behind me, followed by the sharp click of the lock. "Okay, Nick," Jessica said softly, "we'll do it your way." Without warning, one of them began to undress, and the others followed suit. Soon, all 3 were standing there, naked, their backs turned toward me. And there they were, red, black, and green, the same marks I had once made, dots shining brightly between their shoulder blades. Next to each dot was a name, written in the matching color. "Jessica," I pointed, "Lisa, Karen." I paused, confused. "Wait, I thought green was Jessica's." "We lied," Jessica admitted. "We didn't know how upset you'd be. But now the names are right, and so are the colors. If things go the way we hope, we'll always keep our colors. Whether we're dressed or not, those colors will be the way you tell us apart," Lisa added. I shook my head in disbelief. "You've lied about so much already," I muttered. "How can I trust that you'll stick to this now? How do I know this is even real?" "These aren't just marks, Nick," Karen said softly. "They're tattoos. We got them finished on Monday morning. They can't be washed off, erased, or fade away. They're permanent. We knew you needed something to distinguish us once and for all." I blinked, still trying to wrap my head around it. "Names, not just dots. If you look closer, we each have another mark near our shoulder blades, and we have matching tattoos on the front, near our belly buttons," Lisa said. "Can you see?" I glanced down at their bellies and noticed delicate flowers inked near their navels, each one a different color. They were small but clear, like symbols you couldn't miss. There was no black flower, just red, green, and blue. "Now you know who's who," Jessica said softly. "There's no more hiding. Just us." I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. "Let's head to the kitchen and talk," I said, feeling like I was venturing into completely unknown territory. Once in the kitchen, I reached for Jessica's hand and pulled her close. I held her tightly, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. I could see her sisters were upset. "Why are you holding Jessica close to you, Nick?" Karen asked, her voice tinged with hurt. "Because she's my wife," I replied firmly. "I thought I'd been married to her this whole time." "But we thought you were going to work something out between all of us," Lisa added, her voice full of confusion. I nodded. "I'm going to make sure each of you becomes your own person. If you don't, I'll divorce Jessica and move on. I know all 3 of you love me, and you think this can work, but I'm not ready for it." "I really don't know if I ever will be," I said, struggling to put my thoughts into words. "I've always been a one-woman guy, and this whole situation has driven me crazy." "But what about Karen and me?" Lisa asked, her voice breaking. We love you just as much as Jessica does. Don't we deserve a chance with you too? We'll share. You'll only be with us from now on. We'll do anything to prove it. I don't need proof, I replied coldly. I want Jessica. I tried telling you that last night, but none of you listened. I love Jessica, and I want her. I care about you both, but not in the same way I love her. I saw the pain flash across Lisa and Karen's faces. Jessica gripped my hand tightly, and I could feel my heart racing. I'd spent the whole week thinking this through, and I realized that if we all moved in together, it wouldn't take long for us to get caught. Legal and moral issues would come crashing down on us, just like that guy in the news recently. I can't do this, I said, my voice cracking. We want you, Nick, Jessica whispered, her voice trembling. We all want you, and we'll fight to keep you. But what about what I want? I snapped. You all claim to love me so much, but what about what I can handle? Don't you see that you're forcing your will on me without giving me a real choice? They exchanged glances, guilt and sadness written all over their faces. Deep down, they knew that what they wanted wasn't what I wanted. Despite my own confusion and fear, I knew the only way forward was with one wife, just one. None of you understand how I feel about this, I continued. I thought I was happily married to Jessica. I believed she was faithful and that she loved only me. Now I find out that she's been all of you. I find out that while we were married, you, were with other men. And as much as you think that what I didn't know wouldn't hurt me, it does. It hurts more than you can imagine. I felt Jessica's grip on my arm loosen as she started to pull away. There was fear in her eyes, mixed with pain. I rarely cursed in front of them, but the betrayal weighed heavily on me. I pulled Jessica back toward me, holding her tightly. I need you all to understand something, I said, keeping my voice steady. I can only love one woman. Anything else feels like cheating, even if the other two agree. Don't you see? If we try to do this your way, I'll be lost to all of you. If you hadn't found out, everything would have been fine, Karen protested. You've been with each of us since you got married, and you never seemed to mind before. You're right about that, I admitted. But just because someone doesn't know they're being cheated on doesn't make it okay. Once they find out, it hurts just the same, and it's never right. But we all love you, Lisa insisted. We all want you to be our man. Only Jessica can have me, I said firmly. Karen, Lisa, you both need to find your own soulmates. You need your own lives. Jessica can have me if she wants, but that doesn't mean we'll work out, not after all this. I'm willing to try to fix things, but only if you can all be true to yourselves and to me. Tears welled up in their eyes. I could see the pain I was causing, but I knew this was the only way forward. This means, I continued, that you, Karen and Lisa, need to find your own partners. No more switching, no more pretending. Jessica, you'll need to be faithful to me, just like I've always been faithful to you in my heart. Sobs filled the room, and I knew I had hurt them deeply. I wasn't sure if Jessica would stay with me after this. Their bond might be too strong to break, but I hoped they would respect my decision. Anything else would only bring more pain. I had already made up my mind. I'm ready to divorce Jessica and move on with my life if it comes to that, I thought. I didn't know if we could truly fix things, but I still loved her despite everything. She deserved one chance to be the wife I believed she could be. I'm going to leave now, I said, standing up. You all need to think about it and let me know what you decide. I need more time alone, and you need to figure out what you really want. I drove back to the motel and sat in the dark for a long time, wrestling with my decision. I hoped that the offer I'd made was the best way forward for all of us. If they couldn't accept it, I was prepared to walk away. I didn't want to divorce Jessica, but if they couldn't agree to my terms, I would have no choice. I'd always been, and always would be, a one-woman man. Later that night, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Jessica was standing there, looking haunted. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Come in," I said softly. "Nick, how did you know it was me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Your color," I replied, remembering the marks. "Oh, right." I stepped aside, letting her in. She looked fragile, broken, and the tension between us hung thick in the air. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked. "About us," she said, her voice trembling. I nodded, trying to stay calm. I hadn't expected her to come tonight. Honestly, I didn't think any of them would show up. I figured they couldn't break away from the lives they'd been living since they were kids. "Take a seat," I offered gently. "Do you want something to drink?" "I've got soda or bottled water," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "Water would be nice," Jessica replied quietly. I grabbed a bottle and sat down at the small table across from her. She looked around the room, avoiding eye contact, and the silence between us felt heavy. Finally, I decided to break it. "Okay, Jessica, you came here for a reason. You must have tracked me down for something important. What do you want to say?" "We've talked about everything, all of us," she started. "Karen and Lisa are hurt more than you can imagine, but they both agree I deserve to be with you. If you take me back, I'll be your wife and nothing more, just your wife. No more switching, no more lies, no more hiding anything." I nodded. "Okay, but that's not all, is it?" "No," she admitted. "Karen and Lisa know we hurt you worse than we realized. We never understood how you really felt. We thought you'd be thrilled if you knew you had all of us. Now we know we were wrong, so wrong. We've probably ruined some of your love for us. And I say, us, because, until recently, you were in love with all three of us. Don't say you weren't, because you were. You treated each of us the same. You still don't get it, do you?" I asked, shaking my head. "I treated you all the same because I thought I was with my wife, the one woman I loved with everything in me. I never knew the truth. If I had known, things would have been different. Don't think they wouldn't have been. In my mind, I didn't love all of you the same. Even if you tricked me, I was always with Jessica in my heart." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I know that now. We all know that now. We didn't see it before, but after everything, we understand. I want to spend my life with you, Nick. I want to love you, and I want you to love me." Karen and Lisa wanted the same, but they realized they need to find their own men. I sighed, feeling a weight lift off my chest, and nodded. "So, no more switching." "Never again," Jessica promised. "It won't be easy for any of us, but we know we were wrong. This has been a painful lesson, and we realize how badly we messed up. Mom and Dad would be horrified if they knew how far we took this." "You don't have to tell them," I said quickly. "Let it go. The only people who know the full story are you three, Tom, and me. Let your parents believe you're the good daughters they've always thought you were." I won't say anything, and I'm sure Tom won't either. "Oh, we thought you might want us to tell everyone, to show how we've changed," Jessica said, her eyes wide with surprise. "Hell no," I said, shaking my head. "For starters, it would put you three, your family, and me in an awkward spot. Just forget it, and we'll move on with our lives, just the two of us. Karen and Lisa can find their own partners, and we can all move forward without dragging anyone else into this mess. We can figure this out ourselves, okay?" "Really?" Jessica asked, her voice trembling with relief. "You'd be okay if only the four of us know what happened." "My lips are sealed, Jessica," I promised. "This stays between us." Her face lit up, and she rushed over, hugging me tightly before kissing me. I pulled back my chair and sat her on my lap, holding her close. We kissed deeply, and I could feel the tension between us start to fade. Nick, do you think you could help me out here?" Jessica asked with a playful grin. It's been a while since we've been together. I don't want to pressure you, but I'm feeling pretty on edge right now. I smiled, feeling some of the tension lift. I had been on edge too, and it finally felt like things were turning around. I gave in, letting her have some fun. Later that night, after we shared some much-needed intimacy, Jessica looked into my eyes, a mischievous spark flickering in her gaze. What? I asked, curious. I was just thinking, she said with a small smile. You know Karen and Lisa are going to be looking for their own guys now, right? Yeah, I replied cautiously. Well, she continued, in the meantime, they'll probably get excited. I was wondering, do you think you could help them out occasionally? You know, just until they find someone to love. Jessica. I exclaimed, shocked. I'm kidding, she laughed. Just kidding. Can't you take a joke? Crap, I muttered, shaking my head. I know you wouldn't do that on purpose, but don't even joke about that, okay? You won't do it, she said, still smiling. From now on, you're stuck with me. But you know, our, sex life might slow down a little. You might get tired of just me. Oh, I don't think I'll be the one slowing down, I replied with a grin. You won't get the breaks you used to. You'll have to deal with me constantly pestering you for sex, just watch. Yes, she whispered, her smile growing. I can definitely live with that. I looked at her, hoping everything would be okay between us. I loved her so much, despite everything that had happened. When I first confronted Jessica about the whole situation with her sisters, I still believed we could work things out. I wanted to believe that the woman I married, the woman I loved, could get past the lies and betrayals. But the truth was so much worse than I had imagined. Jessica hadn't just been sharing me with her sisters, she had been part of a twisted game they'd been playing together for years. I was nothing but a pawn in their messed up arrangement. The more I thought about it, the deeper the betrayal cut. How many nights had I been with Karen or Lisa, thinking it was Jessica? How many moments of intimacy were built on a lie? Every touch, every whispered word of love, it was all false. The anger simmered inside me, growing stronger with each new realization. Every time I looked at Jessica, all I could see was betrayal, not just from her, but from her whole family. They were all part of this sick game. I had been trapped in a marriage with 3 women, none of whom respected me enough to be honest. Divorce felt like my only way out. I couldn't fake it anymore. I couldn't look at Jessica without feeling disgusted. I had been manipulated, deceived, and I knew I had to take back control of my life. Filing for divorce felt like the only way to escape the web they'd spun around me. The divorce was a full-on war. Jessica fought me every step of the way, insisting that she still loved me, swearing she could make things right. But love? How could she even say that? She had let her sisters sleep with me, impersonating her, lying to me for years. That wasn't love, it was the worst kind of betrayal. I made sure every lie, every deception, was brought out in court. I wasn't about to let her off easy. I hired the toughest lawyer I could find, determined to make the world see what they had done to me. I refused to be the victim anymore. I wanted justice. The looks on their faces when the truth came out, when they realized I wasn't backing down, was the only satisfaction I got. I wanted Jessica, Karen, and Lisa to feel the humiliation, the same humiliation I had felt for years. I went after everything, the house, the cars, the money. I didn't care anymore. I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her to know that she had destroyed the very thing she claimed to care about, our marriage. But in the end, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about walking away from the lies and chaos they had created. I needed a clean break, and I made sure I got it. After the divorce, I didn't expect to think much about Karen. Of the 3 sisters, she had hurt me the least. Lisa had always been the wild one, always pushing boundaries, constantly flirting. But Karen? She was different. She was quieter, more reserved, and it always seemed like she didn't really want to play the game but got dragged into it by her sisters. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she'd always been the odd one out. We started talking, Karen and I. At first, it was awkward. How could it not be? I still saw her as part of the betrayal. She knew that, and it made her hesitant. But as we talked more, I began to see things differently. Karen wasn't like the others. She had been as trapped as I was, trying to maintain her bond with her sisters. One night, after too many drinks, she broke down. She told me everything, how she'd loved me for years but had been too afraid to say anything, how she had been swept along by Jessica and Lisa's manipulation. Her tears were real, and for the first time, I saw her pain. That night, something changed inside me. I realized Karen wasn't just another player in their twisted game. She had been suffering too, forced to play a role she never wanted. It surprised me, but I began to feel something for her, empathy, maybe even hope. For the first time since the divorce, I saw a future that wasn't overshadowed by anger. We didn't rush things. I couldn't. After everything that had happened, I wasn't ready to dive back into a relationship. But the more time I spent with Karen, the more I realized she was the one I should have been with all along. She wasn't like her sisters. Karen was thoughtful, kind, and most importantly, honest. There were no secrets between us, no more games. What I saw with Karen was what I got, and after years of deception, that was exactly what I needed. We fell in love, but it wasn't the whirlwind romance I had with Jessica. With Karen, it was slower, more meaningful. It was about trust, about rebuilding something real from the ruins of our past. We took trips together, shared quiet moments that felt more intimate than anything I'd ever experienced in my marriage. Karen had a depth to her that Jessica and Lisa never had. She wasn't focused on the superficial things her sisters had always seemed to care about. She wanted something real, something lasting. Eventually, I asked Karen to marry me. There was no grand proposal, no big gestures. It was simple, personal, and deeply meaningful. We had been through hell together, and I knew that if we could survive that, we could survive anything. When she said yes, it felt like the first real step toward a future I could actually believe in. Marrying Karen was the best decision I ever made. It wasn't just about finding love again, it was about finding peace. With Karen, I didn't have to worry about who was lying or what games were being played. She was honest, and our life together was exactly what I had always wanted, simple, quiet, and real. Jessica and Lisa reached out a few times after the wedding, but I kept my distance. I had no interest in revisiting that chapter of my life. Karen cut ties with them too, knowing that the only way we could truly move forward was to leave the past behind. We built a new life together, one based on trust, respect, and the love that grew naturally between us. Looking back, I realized the revenge I craved after the divorce didn't give me the peace I thought it would. What truly healed me was finding real love again. Karen was that love, someone who valued me for who I was, not as part of some twisted game. Together, we moved on from the lies and built a future far better than anything I could have imagined with Jessica.